I have not done a Delphi live chat in a month, so I have an update that is about 44 slides and takes about 42 minutes, covering what has happened in the Delphi case since July 24th. I did a members only live chat on Saturday, and this is the recording from that where I review my PowerPoint summaries. I showed this same review at the start of Sunday's public live chat, but I have a members only live chat on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern and also a public live chat on Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern where I will not review these summaries. So that's why I'm uploading it separately. If it sounds like I have a cold, it's because I got COVID on my return from Italy. So here we go. Okay, so my last live chat was July 20th. So July 24th, correspondence to and from the court was filed. It said only the initials KMS. So it's unknown what initials those refer to, but people are wondering if it was possibly Kelsey Siebert or Seibert, Libby's sister. Not sure what it was about. The following day, Judge Gull issued an order. She approved the defense request to present up to 5 minutes of a mini opening statement to the jury panel prior to voir dire, which is the jury selection. The day after that, July 26th, Gull also issued an order where she was denying 2 requests from Indiana TV stations to broadcast the 3 days of hearing. So it seems like she is not going to allow the trial in October to be broadcast. So next up was the big news from the past few weeks. From July 30th, 31st, and August 1st in the Carroll County Courthouse, they were supposed to review 7 different issues, but on one of the days, the defense removed their request to suppress Rick's second statement, which was referred to as his October 26, 2022 interview with Holman, where Rick was arrested soon after. The total list is the defendant's motion to suppress, state's motion for admissibility of Rick's confessions to Dr. Walla, a psychologist at Westville Prison, defendant's motion to compel and motion for sanctions, defendant's motion to vacate the safekeeping order, which is where Rick was being held in a prison instead of a jail, the state's motion in limine, and finally, defendant's second motion to dismiss and the state's response. So there were 3 of these motions addressed on the first day, July 30th. The safekeeping order, motion to compel and sanctions, and defendant's motion to dismiss. First up is defendant's motion to vacate safekeeping order. McClellan said the safekeeping order cancellation request was only so Rick could be closer to Rosie's office. I agree Rick should be close to his attorneys, but I think Cass County Jail only allows video visits with family and attorney, so not in-person visits. Also, medical and mental health services are not as frequent at county jails as they are in prisons. So we'll see if Rick's condition improves. Gull asked if the statute gives her the ability to order Rick to county jail under safekeeping or only to the Department of Correction. Rosie says she can order Rick to a jail. So I wonder why this was not discussed in June of 2023 or earlier. Why didn't Gull and her team research the county jail option last year? Rosie previously said that in February 2023, he contacted the Cass County Sheriff to see if he has space for Rick. I just don't think it's really acceptable that it took Gull and the judicial system 1 year and 9 months to figure out where Rick should await trial. Something just seems wrong with our system. So Gull decided on day 3 to allow Rick to go to Cass County Jail, and he reportedly smiled when she said that he's out of prison, and so he's going to await his trial at Cass County Jail. That was the end of that one. Also, defendant's motion to compel and motion for sanctions. A motion by the defense to force the prosecution to turn over discovery within 7 days of them receiving it. I want to know, how is there new data 7.5 years after the murders and nearly 2 years after Rick was arrested? The defense wants sanctions against the prosecution for how they handled evidence. Defense attorney Jennifer Auger said the team has received 26 terabytes of data, which includes more than 48,000 files. She told the court many of the files are labeled with only numbers, making it difficult and time-consuming to determine what is in each file. The state is handing over reports after the defense deposes people, so then they have to re-interview them, and it is a waste of time. I agree that it is not acceptable, and I'm concerned that law enforcement was not organized for 5.5 years before Rick was arrested. So if they didn't have their stuff in order, how were they conducting a proper investigation? The defense invoice to drive to Georgia to get a copy of Brad Holder's Facebook photo cost $12,000. I don't understand, and I don't think anybody else understands how that cost that much money when it could have been emailed. So stay tuned for possible more details on that. McClellan said his team has spoon-fed the defense and done their job for them. But if these files only have numbers, how is law enforcement finding them? Investigator Mullen is the one who is organizing it before giving it to the defense. So how is he accessing it and categorizing it? The defense does not have Google Geofence warrant that explains which device IDs match which names in these other reports. So it seems like the prosecution is not really handing over stuff that is easy for the defense to follow. Celebrite is one of the most popular phone extraction software and was updated in 2024, and law enforcement performed new extractions, including Libby's phone. So I'm not sure what that revealed, the latest extraction from 2024. Continuing with the motion to dismiss, BH's Facebook photo mimicking the crime scene was posted in 2012, so 5 years before the murders. Murphy stated that there was an undeniable link between Delphi and the Rushville Odinists, but later said they found no evidence to place any of the Odinists at the crime scene. Baldwin tried to prove exculpatory evidence was withheld from the defense team. Holman said the murders happened on February 13th between 2:30 and 3:30 on Ron Logan's property when Allen said down the hill. So obviously Jerry Holman thinks Richard Allen was Bridge Guy. BH's work time card showed he checked in at 4:55 a.m., took lunch from 12:12 to 12:42 p.m., and then checked out at 2:45 p.m. And then he checked in at the gym in Logansport at 4:08 p.m. To me, it makes no sense that BH would drive 30 minutes from his work to Delphi, arrive around 3:15 in Delphi, like the cemetery or something, then walk to the crime scene for 5 minutes, watch the ritual murder for a few minutes, and then drive to the gym. This does not even fit with Todd Click's theory that the murders were random after Abby and Libby saw the ritual and made fun of it. So I don't know, this Odinist stuff is just not adding up to me. Continuing with the motion to dismiss, the defense discussed Libby's phone ping at 4:33 a.m. on February 14th when 15 text messages arrived on her phone after not getting any messages for many hours. I want to know, was her phone physically turned on by someone's finger, or did it just connect to the tower and download messages? There's a really big difference. The data on the phone may show the battery levels over time and what happened at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th. The phone was on the ground under Libby's sneaker and under Abby's body. So I think that was the killer trying to stop the phone from either making a noise while ringing or preventing its ability to connect to a tower to show the location of the phone and the girls. The defense asked why there were 101 phone extractions of other people, but not BH, who had a rune drawing on his hand, similar to sticks found on Abby's body. I added, the defense needs to give it up with the BH BS. He was not there, and they have never shown proof that he was, that he orchestrated these murders, or a logical reason why he wanted them murdered. I just feel like it's really unethical of the defense to keep putting BH's and PW's names out there, saying they were the ones who murdered these two girls, when the defense can't show any solid evidence that they did. They're just trying to prevent Rick from looking guilty, and they're just blaming these people where there's no evidence that they were there. Next up were emails between Jay Abbott from the FBI and Doug Carter early on in the investigation that stated that BH was a suspect, but Holman disagreed. This is not really a trial of how competent law enforcement was at following leads. Some people are focusing on all these other things, but not acknowledging that Rick's noon to 1:30 timeline does not add up. Rick is the one on trial, not Indiana police departments, which they should be after this, but not at this time. So next up was the following day, July 31st, defendant's motion to suppress and state's objection, and the state's motion for admissibility. Before they started, Judge Gull said jury selection will be starting October 14th, and then the trial starts October 18th. So the first step was the motion to suppress. Between March to June 2023, Rick made at least 61 incriminating statements with details to inmates, guards, and the warden at Westville Prison. The defense argued Rick did not make the confessions voluntarily, but was coerced by guards and suffering from mental illness, so they want Gull to suppress the statements from the jury. Rosie said that U.S. and Indiana Constitution violations have occurred. Next up, prosecutor Stacey Diener said multiple people were in each confession category, including nurses and doctors. So Rosie had broken down Rick's confessions into 5 different categories, which, I mean, if you have to break down confessions into categories and there's 5, that's not good for Rick. A letter Rick wrote to the prison chaplain can't be found, which I don't understand how people are losing all this evidence. Rick confessed to his family, but they are not state actors because the defense is saying that like the guards and stuff coerced Rick, but they work for the state. But obviously we've heard that Rick confessed to his wife and mom on the phone, but they do not work for the prison or the state of Indiana. Rick said, "I killed them," but later said he was innocent. Continuing with the motion to suppress, the former Westville warden Gallipo, he discussed Rick's cell conditions at Westville, where the lights are always on, but Rick could dim them in his cell. His door had a 5 by 10-inch hole. There was a guard or suicide companion at Rick's cell all the time. Rick was put on suicide watch on April 1st, 2023, so his privileges were taken away. I'm not sure why they reference this date, because in the April 11th, 2024 memorandum of law in support of defendant Allen's motion to suppress, the defense stated Rick was placed on suicide watch upon his initial detention in November of 2022, despite the fact that there were no underlying findings to suggest he was suicidal. Rick made 3 to 5 incriminating statements through his cell door slit, such as, quote, "I killed those girls," end quote, which I was not surprised to hear that Rick supposedly said, "I killed those girls," because in the Frank's memo, volume 1, the defense created that fake quote on page 22 that stated, quote, he would not be able to privately discuss anything with his attorney, such as, quote, "The guards are telling me that my wife and family will be killed unless I call my wife and tell her I killed those girls," end quote. So it seems like Baldwin and Rosie knew Rick said, "I killed those girls," and they were just trying to falsely blame the guards for making him say it, which is shady to me. Continuing with Gallipo, the temporary suicide companions were not supposed to communicate with Rick. They were just supposed to sit outside his cell and only write down his odd behavior and give it to Dr. Walla's team. One inmate told his girlfriend what Rick told him, but the subject was not revealed in testimony, and the companions were replaced by guards on April 23rd, 2023. Rick wrote to Warden Gallipo that he wanted to meet him to confess, but Gallipo sent the letter to Internal Affairs and never actually had a formal meeting with Rick. Gallipo walked past Rick's cell every day to look at his physical condition, but not talk. One time, Rick approached the door and confessed to Gallipo, but gave no specific details of the crime. Rick told Gallipo he was treated well at Westville, but I think someone else said during these hearings that Dr. Walla said Rick thought he was being treated bad. Rick was offered a TV at some point, but did not want it, which I'm not sure if that's a true statement or not. Why would he not want a TV? Another person, I believe her name is pronounced Keneva Maps. She is the Westville Internal Affairs and Correctional Police Officer. She testified that Gallipo gave her team the letter that Rick wrote to him, and it was put in the evidence room. Next up, Rosie questioned Holman. He said that Rick told guards he was innocent and also guilty. Rick said he used a box cutter to murder Abby and Libby and threw it in the dumpster at CVS. So he said he got this box cutter through his job at CVS Pharmacy. And on the right here, you can see there is a dumpster. Continuing with the motion to suppress, Rosie questioned Dr. Walla, who is the psychologist at Westville. She met with Rick daily when he arrived at Westville and was on suicide watch. They talked from his cell door mostly, but sometimes in other areas of the prison. Rick did not have a desk and slept and ate on his floor and said there were rats in his cell, which that's nasty. Rick has taken mental health medication since he was 25 and was on Prozac at the time of his arrest. He had major depressive disorder, dependent personality disorder that causes anxiety when separated from family, and general anxiety disorder. Rick was hospitalized for depression in 2019, but the month was not revealed. It is unknown if it was before or after the April 2019 Delphi press conference. Obviously, if it turns out that it was like May of 2019, that's going to look pretty guilty that he had a breakdown soon after there's a big update on the case. Rosie questioned Dr. Walla even further. She said Rick's mental health deteriorated in March 2023 when he said he didn't feel right. By April 1st and 2nd, he was suicidal, delusional, and not eating or sleeping. He ran into a cell wall on purpose, which caused a head injury, so he was involuntarily given the medication Haldol, which is an antipsychotic drug. I looked up the side effects of that drug, and there was nothing really saying any kind of mental side effect that would cause him to confess to these murders. When Rick arrived at Westville, he was not very religious, but on March 21st, 2023, Rick found God and started to confess, even before he saw discovery evidence. When Dr. Walla first met Rick, he said he was innocent, but on May 3rd, 2023, Rick told her he wanted to call his wife to confess and wanted Dr. Walla to hear it, but his wife did not answer. Rick said his wife doesn't believe him, and he wanted to confess to get right with God. He was remorseful of his actions and wanted to give his Bible to Abby and Libby's families. Rick's family didn't believe him and told him, quote, "They're messing with you. They're messing with your mind," end quote. Rick told his family he felt like he was being mentally tortured. Rick was not informed that his murder confessions to mental health professionals are not private. Rick said he thought everyone hated him, but Dr. Walla said he had supporters on social media to try and make him feel better. Dr. Walla continued her long testimony by saying, Rick's mental health was still bad, and he was receiving Haldol weekly until his depression was at its worst in June 2023, before returning to some normalcy in July 2023. Due to his mental state, he was one level away from being transferred to a mental health facility. Dr. Walla thought Rick was faking memory loss and some symptoms, and he said he wanted to go to the Logansport State Hospital for inmates with mental illness so his family could be closer and see him. So it's unclear if he somehow found out that he could be transferred to this mental health facility closer to his family, and so he started acting odd to try and get transferred. Dr. Walla followed the Delphi case online before Rick was arrested and became her client. She visited Delphi's Monon High Bridge and accessed Kegan Kline's private files in the prison system, even though she should not have accessed those files. In April 2023, Rick said he wanted to kill his family, friends, and himself, but was too much of a coward and doesn't want to die. Inmates normally don't spend more than 30 days in solitary confinement, but Rick was part of the safekeeping order and had mental issues. Next up are things revealed during testimony by Detective Harshman. He listened to over 150 hours of Rick's phone calls. He still has a few more months of Rick's prison cell surveillance video to examine. Rick's cell was under video surveillance for 24 hours a day. He never heard or saw confirmation that Rick said he shot Abby or Libby, or about any kind of sexual assault or molesting. It may be possible those were claims written by inmate companions talking to Rick. Over 2 months, Rick made 61 confessions with details and motive, plus another 40 other confessions without details via phone, text, and video. Rick does not want his family to see what he did and be revealed at trial. So I don't know why he's not changing his plea yet. At one point, apparently, Rick said he was disappointed with his attorneys. He confessed once at Wabash prison in February 2024 to a guard saying he was sorry he killed Abby, but no reference to Libby. In November 2022, when he was first put into prison, Rick told his wife over the phone, quote, "If this gets too much for you, just let me know, and I'll talk to the detectives and tell them everything they want to know," end quote. So what's up with that? So at the end of this, Rick apparently cried during certain testimony, threw his hands up in the air, and covered his face when they talked about what he did with his own feces. Next up on August 1st was the motion in limine. McClelland wants to prevent the jury from hearing about the following things: about McClelland, various witnesses, third-party perpetrators, including Odinism and cult or ritualistic killing, Odinit, Kegan Kline and his dad, or Ron Logan, Todd Click, geofencing that is not relevant, prior bad acts of witnesses, how the files handed over to the defense were labeled, and PowerPoint executive briefs. The defense feels if they can show a third party committed the murders, it's less likely that Rick committed the murders. But McClelland said he can debunk most of what the defense stated. Liggett and Lesenby thought 2 people were involved because of the terrain and short amount of time the murders happened. No time of death is listed on the autopsies. Law enforcement was looking for suspects with an interest in sticks and runes, And the FBI initially focused on pagan rituals, but the Behavioral Analysis Unit determined it was not a ritual killing. The defense questioned Dr. Dawn Perlmutter, who is an expert on ritualistic homicides and teaches the FBI. She's familiar with Odinism, but not an expert. It seems like the defense found her after Bolden called a heathen expert in April of this year, but she was not interested in helping them because she disagreed with their conclusions. I'm just wondering what happened to the Purdue professor Turco, who the defense said agreed with them. It wasn't hard for the defense to find Dr. Perlmutter because she appeared on Court TV in September 2023, the day after the defense released the first Franks memo and revealed their Odinist ritualistic sacrifice theory. She said at that time she thought it was a classic ritualistic killing only based on reading descriptions from the Franks memo. During the recent hearing, she referenced the concept of magical thinking, which is when you get into the mind of someone who leaves symbols at a scene. She concluded the murders of Abby and Libby were a textbook ritual murder with all the indicators. So then a few days ago on August 15th, the defense submitted a filing referencing Dr. Perlmutter's testimony that I will talk about more a little bit later in this video. Continuing with the motion in limine, McClelland asked Dr. Perlmutter, how is she an expert on Odinistic murders if there haven't been any Odinistic murders? I'm not sure exactly what she said. The autopsy said the girl's wounds were from a serrated blade. McClelland indicated Rick may have said he killed them before he got to complete his sexual fantasy. Staging was an undoing because he felt remorse. It was not some kind of ritual or some kind of rune. The defense asked Holman about sketches 1 and 2 looking different, and he said he thinks they were the same man, Rick. It was mentioned that neither witness 4 or the 3:57 p.m. driver on 300 North wanted to do a sketch, but police pressured them to do the first and second sketches. Next up, BH's ex-wife testified and said BH told her he never met Abby, which he later changed his stance on that. The fight with PW was because PW wanted to move beyond animal sacrifices to human sacrifices. BH was drunk when saying most of these things, including when he said PW killed Abby and Libby and that his wife should be quiet or PW would kill her. BH's family were Christian, but his wife got him interested in Nordic gods. BH told her that Abby's mom was living with a black man. They were only married a few months in 2018 and did not even know each other in 2017, which I don't understand how that works, because if he said that his wife got him interested in Nordic gods, but he was posting on Facebook these Nordic runes in at least 2016. His ex-wife said people in her religion do not kill white children in rituals. BH said the mimic crime scene picture were his friends reenacting a sacrifice. BH's boss signed an affidavit stating she saw him at work the day of the murders. Next up, the defense questioned Kevin Murphy, who works for Indiana State Police. Police had EF's sister call him about the murders, but he didn't admit to anything on the phone. The alibi that EF was at a hospital visiting a friend with 2 men was a lie, although I think he said that in 2018, so I don't know how they expect these guys to remember where they were on that specific day. EF's sister said the morning of February 14th, 2017, Elvis tried to give her a blue coat with blood on it and said he was part of a gang now, which obviously that's kind of weird, or more than kind of. Murphy thought EF was messing with him and possibly lying. EF's sister had a lot of pills in her home that may have indicated a mental issue where she was also not telling the truth, although one of his sisters did pass a lie detector test. Murphy never had evidence to place any of the Odinists at the crime scene, which to me is like one of the biggest facts in this case, at least trying to prove that Odinists killed Abby and Libby and not Rick. Next up, the defense questioned Todd Click, who worked at the Rushville Police Department and investigated these Odinists. He thought Abby and Libby encountered men doing a ritual in the woods and made fun of them, so they were killed out of anger by the Odinists, which I was so surprised to hear that that was his theory. But he may not have had access to all the facts, like that witness 4 saw one man on platform 1 a few minutes before Abby and Libby reached the high bridge, and that 4 girls between 12:30 and 1:30 only saw one man entering the trails. We know that Abby and Libby took photos on the high bridge, so where and when did Abby and Libby see this group ritual at 2 p.m. on a Monday afternoon? His theory, no offense, but it just makes no sense to me, and I'm really surprised that he thinks it does. That sounds mean, but sorry. Click said there was no proof Odinists were at the crime scene, so why does he still think they're involved? I mean, I agree that there are definitely a lot of suspicious things about the Odinist, but there's not enough to prove that they were there. Next up, the defense questioned Dave Vito, who works for Indiana State Police. Police thought Tony Kline may have used Kegan's social media but could not prove it. Kegan had a Smith & Wesson 40 caliber gun, but police never found it. That's important because the round found next to the bodies was from a 40 caliber gun. The Unified Command thought the motive was sexual with two minor females. Kegan and his dad were at home in Peru using their phones on the day of the murders. Not at the grandparents, not at the cousins, not anywhere else, but they were home the day of the murders. During the August 2022 Grissom Air Force Base interview with police and Kegan, he said he was at the Delphi cemetery with his dad in the red Jeep on the day of the murders. His dad, Tony, went into the woods while Kegan waited in the car. Tony returned 1 to 2 hours later with blood on his pants and didn't say what he did, but, quote, "we had a good time," end quote. So police took Kegan in a car after he said this and had him show the route that he and his father took, but their car was not on any surveillance video, which to me, first of all, Kegan had only said previously that he went to Delphi once for a high school football game. So how would he even know where the Delphi cemetery was? And if he did that in 2022, how did police look at video surveillance from 5 years prior on that same route and not see their red Jeep? I don't know. So then Kegan, I mean, I can't believe that he lied to police with all this stuff. Kegan said he threw a phone and his dad threw a knife in the Wabash River near their house on the way home from killing Abby and Libby. But nothing in the Wabash River search that took like 4 to 5 weeks was found relating to the Klines or led to police looking into Richard Allen. And there was no connection between Kegan and Rick. Police said Kegan's story was a lie and there was no red Jeep on video or digital evidence placing Kegan or his father in Delphi on the afternoon of the murders. Police could not open contents of Kegan's messages sent to Libby, I guess on Instagram or Snapchat. Motion in limine continued. The defense questioning of Haran, who's an investigator, about Geofence data. There were other phones at the crime scene, including a device at the cemetery that connects to one of the Odinists. That was what the defense said, but they didn't really reveal which Odinist it belonged to. McClellan seemed to say that geofencing is unreliable, but I thought, well, if geofencing proved that Rick was at the crime scene at 2:30, then wouldn't McClellan say that geofencing is reliable? So why is he saying it's unreliable if it's not? Why would police order a geofence report if it's not even reliable? So we're gonna have to wait and find out what they say at the trial. Next up, the prosecution questioned Cecil, who also works for Indiana State Police. Libby's phone was extracted in 2019 and 2024 after there was an update to the software for Celebrate, which is the software for extracting data from phones. The bridge guy video was from 2:13 p.m. and 51 seconds until 2:14 and 34 seconds and geolocated close to the Delphi High School at the start of the video, but then it went to the Monon High Bridge. I don't think there's anything shady going on with that. Her Snapchat geolocated to the bridge that day and time, so it seems like there's not any shenanigans with these videos and photos. There was only one phone. Abby did not have a phone. I know there's some rumors that Abby may have had a phone at the crime scene, but apparently he said no. Libby's phone had Apple Health, which tracked their steps for 18 minutes after the bridge guy video, and 2:32 p.m. and 39 seconds was the last movement until their bodies were found. So I wonder if this is the time when it was placed under Abby's body. Also, does the Apple Health tracking of steps reveal they did cross the creek? I'm not sure if it just shows the number of steps or the actual GPS location. It might just be the step count and time. Libby's phone was still on at 4:33 a.m. on the 14th when she received 14 to 15 texts, and the battery was not depleted. She was connected to a cell tower, not Wi-Fi. The photo of Abby on the bridge was not on Libby's phone, but the photo of the entire bridge was. So it might be that Libby took a photo of the bridge and then uploaded it to Snapchat, and the photo of Abby on the bridge was taken in the Snapchat app and not on Libby's phone. So it did not save to her phone. I don't think, again, there's anything that's a conspiracy there. Next up, the defense questioned Purdy, who also works for Indiana State Police or some kind of Indiana Police Department. He said there was no proof the mimicked crime scene photo was on BH's Facebook. But Baldwin said Purdy's deposition confirmed that it was. So I'm not sure that it even has any relevance to the case. So that's that. The defense questioned Cicero, who is a blood spatter expert. The defense previously said the F tree was Libby's blood painted on by the killer, but Cicero did tests and determined it was probably Libby's left handprint with her pinky up as she touched the tree after she tried to stop bleeding from her neck. The shape is more like an upside down L, about 3 by 3 inches, and not the shape of an F. Another blood spot nearby on the tree was possibly her thumbprint. Libby moved around after she was injured with 3 cuts, but Abby was likely on the ground already when she was attacked with 1 cut. Abby was clothed when she died. At one point, she was possibly partially nude. So that was it for the hearings. And then the next thing that happened was on August 12th, Gull denied the 3rd and 4th Frank's memos. So the defense tried it. She denied it. The basis of that was to try and get everything thrown out from the search of his house, and that's not happening. August 13th, the defendant's supplemental submission regarding state's motion in limine was 3 pages by the defense. I wrote that the defense filed this 12 days after the motion in limine hearing. Why didn't they present it at the August 1st hearing? What if Gull had ruled before August 13th when they filed this and not considered these arguments? It might be possible that she told them to file it and she will rule after, because she has not ruled on the motion in limine yet. So the defense requested Gull take notice of the November 22nd, 2022 hearing when the state requested to maintain confidentiality of the probable cause affidavit to arrest Rick. On April 29th, 2024, the state's motion in limine sought to limit various forms of evidence and third-party culpability, like Odinism, cult or ritualistic killing, the 6th Odinist, Kegan Kline and his dad, and Ron Logan. This motion restricts Rick's Sixth Amendment right to present his defense by way of limiting investigative records by Todd Click and geofencing records generated by law enforcement investigators. McClelland said it was an ongoing investigation in November 2022, and quote, "We have good reason to believe that Richard Allen is not the only person involved in this case, that there may be other actors involved. That's why we left the tip line open. That's why we left the tip email open. The question becomes, at least in the state's mind, is it more important to release the details of the investigation to the public, or more important to keep those confidential in order for the investigation to continue and find anyone else that's responsible?" End quote. In addition to the prosecutor's comments, letters were sent to Gull from ISP Detective Jerry Holman and Carroll County Prosecutor's Office investigator Stephen Mullen that stated that the investigation is ongoing and fluid, at least as of November 2022. So the defense is arguing that the state's own admissions are evidence of third-party culpability. And this next slide just shows that there were 1 page each of a letter filed by Mullen and Holman, where they said the investigation is ongoing and releasing the PCA for Rick may jeopardize the case. Also on August 13th, Gull granted the defense's August 7th request for hearing transcripts. So next up, August 15th, Memorandum of Law in support of admission of evidence of alternative theories of the crime. This was 27 pages filed by the defense. My summary was, Rick has a constitutional right under the 6th and 14th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution and the Indiana Constitution to present evidence attacking the credibility of the prosecution's case, undermining the believability of the prosecution's witnesses, identifying third-party suspects, and establishing the defense's theory of the case. This right is essential to a fair trial, and denial of this right constitutes structural error. The defense cited a variety of rulings in prior cases and reviewed what they presented at the recent 3 days of hearings, including witness testimony that the murders have ties to Odinism and were ritualistic. Evidence strongly suggests more than one person was responsible, according to the defense. Murphy, the Indiana State Police officer, testified it has always been the belief of law enforcement that there were between 2 to 6 people involved. There are third-party suspects who have not been charged and who have no ties to Rick. This leads to the conclusion that Rick is innocent and that other individuals killed Abigail Williams and Liberty German. The defense spelled Abby's name wrong. I added the defense left out the part where Murphy said he could not place any of the Odinists at the crime scene. Continuing, the defense summarized Dr. Dawn Perlmutter's findings, including that rituals take place on important dates like February 14th, but failed to show any case where Odinists murdered white girls in a ritualistic sacrifice on February 13th at 2 p.m. on a Monday in 40-degree weather, when most of them should have been working, and some of them have time cards showing they were working. So I looked into Dr. Perlmutter a little bit, and I found an article where she said, quote, "Many neo-pagan religious groups attempt to recreate ancient European pre-Christian religions such as Druids, goddess worshippers, Nordic paganism, and others. She continued, since there are so many different neo-pagan groups and their philosophies do not entail violent rituals, it would go beyond the scope of this article to even briefly describe all of their philosophies, end quote. Final quote from her is, the most controversial crime committed for religious purposes is human sacrifice. Currently, Palo Mayombe practitioners, Satanists, vampires, and serial killers have been linked to ritual murders. So this article was from 20 years ago. So she may have changed her opinion or have more references to Odinist ritualistic killings of 8th grade white girls, but she did not present it during her recent testimony. So I'm not really following her conclusions. So now back to this recent filing. The defense referenced FBI agent Nicole Robertson testifying that when she searched Ron Logan's house soon after the murders, she was looking for evidence of runes and anything Nordic due to the placement of sticks on the girls' bodies. Regarding Libby's phone connecting to the tower at 4:33 a.m., the defense stated, quote, "It is logical to believe that whatever caused the phone to connect was the result of actions taken by third-party suspects," end quote. Well, I added, where's the evidence an Odinist did something to her phone at 4:33 a.m.? So we'll have to wait for the trial to hear more specifics about her phone and what happened. So the defense had a variety of sections in this filing for the Odinist BH, PW, EF, JM, the Klines, and Ron Logan, with their reasons why the defense believed these guys were involved in the murders and not Rick. So I came up with this list of theories referenced by the defense about the killings. They said PW and his crew killed the girls because Abby's mom was a race traitor. They said Kegan said he drove with his father to the cemetery and killed the girls and then threw a knife and gun in the Wabash River. They said Ron Logan matched Bridge Guy's body and voice. They said BH said that PW wanted to go from animal to human sacrifices. I added, so were they doing a ritual at 2 p.m. hoping someone would come by, but they didn't think witness 4 was a good victim? So they waited 2 to 3 minutes for Abby and Libby. But the 4 girls between 12:30 and 1:30 and witness 4 never saw this group of Odinist men doing a ritual. The defense also wants to say that Todd Click thought Abby and Libby randomly walked up upon a group ritual and were killed because they made fun of it. It's like, pick one and go with it. Because if I'm on the jury, like, you can't just give me all these different supposed theories and not explain where your client was. I wrote here, didn't PW and BH have their fight before the murders happened? Continuing, Dr. Perlmutter testified that individuals adhering to the white nationalist version of Odinism would kill others because of the belief that someone was a race traitor. I want to know, where's the evidence of prior Odinist killing any race traitors or 8th grade girls because her mom was dating a non-white person? I mean, she's just not going to convince the jury without more evidence. EF said BH mimicked his Facebook posts when he posted pictures of knives, brass knuckles, and sticks in the woods. But Murphy testified that EF's Facebook post mimicked those of BH. There's a researcher named Thomas Eidson who researched both of their Facebooks, and it is obvious to me that there was no mimicking either way. Just similar objects, and sometimes they were posted a few years apart. So this defense theory doesn't hold up for me. These 2 Odinists from Rushville with the initials NS and EF drove a white pickup truck. So this is something new that came out, these 2 things here. It said, this other thing, I've never heard this, at 4:20 p.m. on the day of the murders, a female driver with the initials TG saw a white truck parked at CPS. I added, well, depending where the 357 driver saw Bridge Guy on 300 North, he was likely gone by 4:20 from CPS. So does the Hoosier Harvest Store camera show a white truck headed towards CPS, and at what time? Does it show it leaving? EF would have had to leave by 5:30 to get home to use his cell phone again at 7:30 p.m. Did the truck, if on video, match NS or EF's truck? Reminder that they live 2 hours away from Delphi. So to be exculpatory, evidence must clear or tend to clear Rick of alleged fault or guilt. I added, how do these Odinist, KK, and Ron Logan accusations answer the questions that point to Rick not being on the trail between noon to 1:30? Is that Rick's car headed to CPS at 1:27 on the Hoosier Harvest Store camera? Why did Rick's gun match the unspent round? Why is Rick confessing dozens of times? The defense questioned the alibis of third-party perpetrators, but have never given a solid alibi for Rick. The defense said the prosecution has not identified any motive as to why Rick would kill Abby and Libby. there's absolutely no evidence as to Rick's motive to commit the crime. But why has the prosecution alluded to Rick revealing the motive in his confessions? In September 2023, this is my part that I added to this here while I was reading this recent filing from August 15th. In September 2023, the defense stated in the Frank's memo, volume 1, page 30, quote, "The F on the tree resembles a rune called Ansu's, which stands for Odin. Again, when paired with the Hoggle rune found on Abby, the combination would proclaim Hail Odin. This F symbol was the same F symbol found in many of BH's Facebook pages, including BH's creepy self-drawn illustration in which a red F rune was found at the base of a tree where a man appeared to be sacrificed on a tree," end quote. So at the recent hearings, the blood spatter expert said it was more like an upside down L on the tree instead of an F. So in this filing on August 15th, the defense stated, quote, "There is what can be interpreted as a Laguz rune painted or transferred to a tree with Liberty German's blood," end quote. So I looked up, and Laguz is the rune of water, intuition, evolution, and unconscious. So the killer's message was Hail Water, not Hail Odin. Like, this totally blows apart this prior theory by the defense. And this is what the Laguz looks like. And that's not even an F. So again, the defense with this Odinist stuff is just not adding up to me. The final slide here is all the errors that the defense made in this filing. At the bottom here, I said, Calgon, take me away, with all these errors. All right, just a few more, and then I'm going to get to your comments. Then, August 15th, Judge Gull ruled on two of the hearing issues. The motion to compel and motion for sanctions, she denied. She said the state has to turn over Sergeant Cecil's report within 10 days to the defense, and any new discovery must be provided within 7 days of receipt over to the defense. She said the parties have to exchange a list of trial exhibits by October 1st. Also on the 15th of August, Gull denied the second motion to dismiss by the defense. She said there's no evidence the state destroyed exculpatory evidence nor acted in bad faith. The defense argues this allegedly exculpatory evidence all relates to the Odinist BH. However, no evidence has been presented to support this argument, nor has any evidence been presented to negate the evidence offered by the state, which cleared BH of involvement in these crimes. That was Gull writing that. So it seems like she did not feel like she saw any evidence to prove that BH was involved. So I'm assuming that for the third party motion in limine, she's going to deny at least that part of it. So the next big update in the case is this Friday, August 23rd at 1 p.m. Eastern. There's going to be a status hearing. The first part is private, which is unknown what it's about. The second part is public, but we also don't know what that's about. So depending on what is revealed, I may do live chats again next weekend. Thanks for watching.